A bonza welcome to everyone. This episode, we will look back at the Underland effigy and temple build from 2024 and 2023. And to talk about the more memorable erection stories, we have two inspiring and amazing burners with us here. Why don't you guys introduce yourself? We've got Glenn and Jim with us. Hi, guys.
Yeah. Hey there. Hey, Stephen. It's great to be on. So my name is Jim, and I was the effigy build lead and design lead for Underland this last year.
What
Oh,
was the name of the project, Jim?
so the effigy was called the Pobblebonk. So it was inspired by the local fauna.
Yeah, we'll get more into that later.
Sure
Hey,
thing.
Glenn.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Glenn. I also go by the moniker Flame Writer, and I've been doing fire sculpture since 2013.
And you helped with the temple, the Nautilus temple in 2023. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
yeah. There's a quite eclectic approach to that one, and I did the carving that was up the top. But yeah, bigger picture with that one, the Underland community has been doing a lot of work in mentoring new people and getting more people involved. So yeah, I was doing some of the work of trying to support that process.
Okay, let's get now. My favorite part is listening to people's origin stories, their background, how they found about the culture, how they discovered it, how they discovered the communities as well, the art community. What are your origin stories, Jim?
Yeah.
How did you get involved?
So I guess I got involved with burns. Well, yeah, the burning culture through Camp Kraken was the camp that I first joined, and that was through some mutual friends and friends of friends who I met at, I think, I got the invitation because I went to a friend's house or a friend of a friend's house, and she was trying to sew some dragon costumes to take to Burning Man for the first time or second time. And I was like, what is Burning Man? And she's like, it's this thing. I want to make these costumes. And I helped her do that. This was my friend Sammy. And then when she got back from Burning Man, then she invited me to join Camp Kraken at Rainbow Serpent for the first time. And that was the first time Camp Kraken was there. And I just remember the experience of that was kind of like just walking in. I'd only just moved to Melbourne. And so it was like walking into this theme camp of like 40 new friends. And I just needed to learn everyone's names, but everyone was like immediately friendly. And yeah, I just kind of loved
Is
that
Camp
whole process.
Kraken
So
is
that's
Camp Kraken famous for its submarine?
Yeah. So the submarine got built. Oh, I can't remember what year that was, but yeah, a few of the guys in the crew decided one year that we wanted to have they wanted to build an art car, and so then we built the submarine, and that went from like the first design ideas being like this dinky little trolley thing, and then becoming this massive ordeal on the ute, and I've often done a lot.
I even remembered you guys towing it. I even remembered you guys towing it all the way to Blazing Swan to the west coast.
Yeah. We were lucky enough to get it over there one year. The thing doesn't move very well. You have to like put it on the back of a flatbed to get it anywhere. If we'd really thought about longevity, we would have made it packed down onto a container or something. But yeah, we took it over to Blazing Swan and had like the best time with that. I remember one morning, and we have there's a lot of attempted high-tech stuff in it with cameras to like show you where you're going and all that sort of stuff. But my favorite way to drive it is still just to have one person standing out the front and you can see out of this tiny little hole and you just follow their ass as they're walking down the road. But yeah, we've had a lot of good parties on that. Rocks a lot. It felt like every time we did Camp Kraken, we reinvented it every year. So we one year we found a whole like pink bar and plush decor in a skip in the city, and we pulled all that out and created the pink flamingo. Another year we had like a whole set of stairs from an old theater piece. We created a cabaret bar for that, and then we got the submarine, and then we built buoys and a jetty, and we had a huge setup at Burning Seed. I think that was probably my memory is terrible for what years these all happened. I'm sorry, but yeah, and then taking it to Blazing Swan was amazing. I think I got to drive it the fastest it's ever been, which was like at 45, 50k an hour down a desert road back to along the edge of the salt flat. But yeah, it was a great time. And so that I kind of like just dived in with the admin and creativity in that, sort of jumping on everyone else's ideas. And then separately to Burns, I got involved with like sculpture building art pieces at Rainbow Serpent and then Babylon and Strawberry Fields with another collective of friends and artists. And yeah, we were getting on a really good sort of momentum there, building. Yeah, we built like a giant eagle one year. We built a sea dragon. We built a temple space at Babylon. We built a stage at Strawberry Fields. And yeah, getting really good momentum of that. But then COVID happened and all of that sort of stopped in the ground. And so, but I was always keen to like kind of combine those two experiences and build something to burn. So yeah, that's why I'd never done a build at Burning Seed, but then at Underland 2 years ago, 23, I saw a post from Axel, I think it was, being like a last minute call out that he needed a few people on the team. And I had a few weeks spare, so I just jumped on board and said, yep. And so then I became part of that crew to do the Rain Moth and the Nautilus Temple. I spent most of the time on the effigy on the moth. Yeah. And then that was a great time. Yeah, really inspiring. And then at the end of that experience, yeah, the word kind of went around, as Glenn mentioned, they were really encouraging like fresh blood or fresh ideas, fresh people to come in and lead the builds or support, designs in any way. And yeah, I got the inspiration for the Pobblebonk, or I had an idea of doing this frog after one night because during the build. I don't know if you want me to go into that full origin story there, but yeah. So
we can talk about it later. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
We can talk about your 2024 build and your lead and your leadership and the idea behind it. Yeah,
for sure.
How about you, Glenn? What's your origin story? How'd you get involved?
Well, back in 2011, there was this phenomenon going on called 1111. It's a bit like the Y2K bug. And there was a bunch of people that actually believe that 2011, on 11/11, there was some portals going to open up. Although this would be, and I misunderstood the festivals based on this. I thought it'd be a bunch of fun to watch a heap of people thinking that the portal's going to open. And then I looked at a lot of the materials coming out. They really resonated with my values. I do and was doing at the time a lot of community activism. So there's a lot of anarchist and socialist theories based on Burning Man. So I was like, all right, we'll give that a go. So I didn't find the 11/11 cult. I found another one. And then watched the man burn that year. And it just brought back my childhood. Fire was my favorite toy besides Lego. And yeah, it was just quite a powerful experience. So yeah, that was really special for me. Now fast forward a few years and there was a talk at a co-working space I was working at, and the captain, Justin McGee, came to try to recruit artists. And I was working on a piece for try to pitch to Rainbow. And I looked at it, well, we could just burn the thing, right? So we pitched it, and then they said it wasn't quite suitable for the location. It would have worked really well in a desert environment. So I redesigned it based on sort of feedback. And the fire crew, specifically Rusty at the time, was very supportive of new people and ideas. And yeah, so sort of those type of people that really build this culture and the artwork. And so I did my first burn, which was really exciting. And yeah, maybe I'm a bit of an addict by now.
That was 2014, did you say, your first burn? First seed, was it?
So my first one was 2013, yeah, Burning Seed.
Yeah.
On Thursday night, they opened it up for me to do a small burn.
And your journey into building effigies or building art, you were quite, in terms of leading the community of building an art burn, that was 2018, was that right? Or 17 at Burning Seed?
No, 2015, I did the effigy. However, that was I was quite naive to building it, and there was a team building under me and also on top of me. So as a creative director, I didn't have a lot of control, but enough control would obviously do my vision. And then it wasn't until the following year, I actually went to Pine Gap to resist the industrialized killing machine that's in the center of our country. So I was unable to participate. So then in 2017, I did Forest Rising. And again, thanks to Rusty and the fire support crew, they opened up Friday night for another burn. And what was really exciting about this is that we could move away from all the dogma that was around the effigy at the time. There was a lot of American dogma. There was a lot of rules. There was a lot of even aggression about how things should be and blah blah blah. So we could just get away from that. Yeah, and it was really good because then we could also look at things like life cycle. There's a bunch of things we're told that we couldn't do as far as building and sourcing materials and sustainability, and so we just did it and really focusing on a concept of removing all the toxins so that we can return ash as fertilizer back to the lands. Yeah, and so we did a bunch of work in that way. So yeah, forest rising was probably the first time I was leading a crew on 2017.
Would you like to see more art burns happening, like pre-temple or pre-effigy? I think it's a good thing.
Most definitely. So the big issue is the safety. Obviously, we need very extensive safety,
which means more volunteers for perimeter and
and also the leads as well. All your safety leads, they're very specialised, skilled, experienced people. So that means I've got to be, sober on the tools from far longer. So ideally, we have a Friday, but we just don't have the resources for that, as we did Burning Seed. We have also discussed the concept of having a bunch of smaller ones within the same perimeter. So maybe we have 6 small effigies, and that way we can have, really good incubator for people to be able to, do new stuff. So yeah, the Underland community is really open to things. It takes a lot of resources of people to support this stuff. So I think the community is still a bit young. We're doing a lot of work around this. But as I think we build, because the foundations and the cultures here. So yeah, I think we can do some really exciting things. And I think we can also just not follow any of the dogma that they have in America about this artwork.
Yeah, you mentioned previously about the getting new blood in, getting new people and new ideas in. I guess some of the hurdles is that it is dominated by men. The work, I guess it's more labor intensive. So how do we get more people involved that is from different backgrounds and different even skill sets? What are the minimum requirements, do you think?
I'd say a minimum requirement is just enthusiasm, and a commitment to a project. Really,
trade wise.
Trade wise, it's like you can learn, like you can learn how to use tools, you can learn how to cut wood, It's like, yes, you need, like, you might, depending on the design, like, of something, you might need, like, a minimum level of fitness to, like, be able to pick stuff up and put stuff down. But even then, like, if you're working with, differing abilities, there's always some aspect of the team that you can get involved in, I think, like definitely like the hands-on stuff on site. You need, I think one of the biggest hurdles is just people having the time available to kind of go on site for a build. But that's why, I don't think my build was the best example of this because I rushed everything quite to the last minute. But if you can plan it so it can be built over weekends, like, and you have a space here in the city, then people can kind of just come in for a few hours, each week, or, a weekend a month or something like that to kind of spread that load out. And then as long as you have a mix of experiences, I think I was really lucky to have, some very talented and experienced builders. And then there were some who were just enthusiastic. And then, and we were all, and, I was using techniques that a lot of my team hadn't used before. So it was just a matter of being open to teaching people and just like having the patience to do that, I think is really important. Do you agree with that, Glenn? Like, it's kind of, I think the most important part of making it an inclusive space is more about the mindset of the people who are, invited or who are invited to lead it. Yeah. Patience, tolerance, and enthusiasm. That'd be my.
What other soft skills do you think? Managing a team, talking to people, showing your vision, like illustrating your vision.
Yeah, definitely having a vision. I guess each project would be kind of. I guess the culture of each project is going to be colored by the personalities of the people leading it. So yeah, I was the creative director and the build lead kind of for my project. So, and I'll be honest that was probably mostly just because I spent most of the time planning it in my head rather than going out and finding the team until maybe 6 weeks before the event, just because, my life didn't give me capacity before then. But I think, having people that can help you like plan out the process. So if you've never done a build before, there are people in the community who will help you like break it down. Like you have like you might have like the back of a napkin sketch of what your idea is, and then they can kind of riff on that and like ask the right questions to get you to think about the structure of it, what the internals are going to be, and like it'll just throw up more questions. But then there are many people in the community who will help you answer those. And then the soft skills I think is just sort of a patience, willingness to collaborate and to not change your ideas, but like to workshop your ideas. So you're going to learn things as you go. You're going to have to figure stuff out on the fly a little bit. So having that sort of flexibility. Yeah. But I think
maybe not to fall in love with your project too much, I guess. Get some outside criticism so you can actually see it from different eyes.
Definitely. And I think I think this is a lesson that I was taught from working with Axel and Glenn on 23 Effigy was like, you'll have a big crazy vision of what you want to do, but then really pare it back as well and think about like, what is the minimum you need to get it done? And then if you have that kind of scale of like the bare minimum and then the big, amazing everything, that gives you a lot of grace to then have time to breathe time to work with and like be flexible with the team you've got on the ground when you get to the site, because shit's going to happen. It's either going to rain some days, or some idea is not going to work, or you might not have you might underestimate how long something's going to take to build. And so if you've got that sort of flexibility, that can make everything that you achieve beyond that bare minimum a lot more enjoyable, because you're not busting your balls to kind of create this Taj Mahal sort of space. You've created the base, and then if you have time and energy to do more, then you're just playing on it, and you're riffing on it, and you're just like, oh, what about that? And what about that? Well, this could be cool, and it becomes a lot more playful, which I think is really important,
It also means you don't burn your crews out if you are good at inspiring people.
Yeah.
Because they're all volunteers, and we've got to respect that and have a lot of love for our people.
Definitely. I think that's really true, and I think, something I learned as well was, that kind of empowering people in the team to kind of like take care, it's kind of, as the lead, you're kind of you're fluctuating between, like inspiring joker and like slave master sometimes, of like, there might be a job that is that is repetitive or whatever. And I always felt really bad being like, I'm sorry, we're going to have to like, nail on another 200 panels here. But if you do it in a way that's like, you give ownership to people, by the end of the build, I had some of the guys on my team who were just like, nah, I'm taking that one off and redoing it because I'm not happy with it. And if they're making that call, then I'm just like, go for gold, but I'm not going to be coming around busting someone's balls on, those sort of minor details. Though I'm sure there were some minor details I got people to redo. But
you got to be flexible. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Glenn, why do you think it's besides the issue of being a male-dominated profession, like building stuff, but what other things like that's trying to get new blood, new people in? What are some other issues?
Well, for me, it's culture, because the issue is really, it reflects the Australian trades. Most of this work, we do require tradespeople to support. We do need some of them solid skills. And, the Australian industry, although changing, is slow and pretty crap. Now, as Jim said, we can teach a lot of these skills. I mean, we do need some base skilled people. So where to move in this context is actually to create spaces that allow diversity. So if you're looking at race diversity, then you would go, well, how do we create a safe space for people of that diversity so that they actually feel comfortable coming in, they feel safe? A lot of lessons learned from gender diversity and the trans community. Like, how do we create a space where they feel that they can come and be safe and feel welcome? Because if we don't do that, they're just not going to come. And then if we make it safe for trans people and people of color, then, then we're making it a safe space for everybody. And I think, we're forming a collective, been doing this work, but we're going to start formalizing this work to really put in systems in place so that we can deal with issues. We can deal with potential minor conflicts when we do have diversity. So then we can actually say to someone, well, you're welcome, and we actually mean it, not just because we think it's cool or we're ticking a box. We're actually doing the work to make people feel welcome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. should we take a quick look at the historic and symbolic meaning of effigies and temples? Because you mentioned David Best, Glenn, and the
Yeah.
history behind that.
Yeah, I think anyone that's interested in temples needs to listen to some of David's talks. There's a specific one you can search, which is Artist Talk with David Best and the Temple Crew. And I was really inspired. Two things: his life cycle. I mean, he was really championing reuse materials and reducing, new materials. But his original temple was dealing with suicide in his community, so he was using the process to bring people together to be able to talk about emotions, especially men, in something that's really deep, and then create a safe space to express our emotions or to process our emotions. So that's wonderful. And then I would then jump to like my my ancestry of the European tradition of solstices, effigies, wickermen. Now, I haven't done a lot of research in that area, but I'll be keen to. But even before then, I mean, there's such a primal human connection. The seasons, we can only do this in winter. The connection to the earth and fire. And then also with the actual man, the burning man, the ephemeral nature of life. You've got this strong man standing proud one day, next day is ashes. And I think that's something to always remember in my life is that, I'm standing strong today, but, things can change really quickly. So it's good to be appreciative and, give thanks.
There's also the history of witchery and I guess spells in terms of effigies and stuff like that as well. In terms of our history, there has been different cultures interpret different ways as well.
Yeah, the thing that I'm also really interested in is to develop partnerships with First Nations. They have a fascinating history with fire on this country. I can explore the European tradition, but I can't explore that without the right people and frameworks. But yeah, like fire is such a major part of First Nations culture, and I'd just really love to see more of that.
And how do you think that's connected in terms of the burner culture? How is it the importance of effigies and temples in the burner culture?
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm be honest, I haven't delved into the books or the podcasts or the theories of other people, but I'm definitely more, I guess, the experiences and things that I've spoken to people about. So, going to like the power of a burn, when everyone is gathering and partying, or gathering at the site, and then an effigy is such a focal point of it, and when the man burns or the effigy burns, it's such a huge release of excitement. It was a really, for someone like, I come from a pretty secular background, and so it's been the most closest kind of like religious experience I'd probably say I've ever had in terms of like ritual on that scale. And having done it in, on 3 continents, it's amazing how well that how similar that feels like across the experience. And then, yeah, and just we might talk about temples later, but like the focal or I guess like the contrast between the energies of like the effigy burning and that sort of like ecstatic release, and then the solemn sadness and when a temple is done well, how powerful of a space that can be in its silence. Not only when it's burning, but when you visit it, like throughout the event. I've had some of the, I've had such beautiful cathartic times at temples, and I think, and that's just like such an embodied experience. And so, yeah, I think it speaks to a lot of, I don't want to say it's like, yeah, it is a religious experience, but it's like, it's that group shared experience that you can only have at certain amounts of scale. When everyone gathers with the right intentions, it can be a really beautiful, beautiful thing to witness and to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, although the Americans think they invented this phenomena, they actually grabbed a lot of traditional religious ceremony that's ancient in this context, and so we can sort of make it very sterile, or we can really tap into that.
Definitely.
I'm more the latter.
And it's this might sound a bit egotistical, but I want to share a story of like my experience of burning the effigy having built and burnt the effigy this year at Underland. Because I guess the talking about like every time I'd gone to a burn before that, you kind of have the focus of the festival going into that, and then it burns and it kind of explodes out into the festival, and then everyone is like on this high. And it felt for the first time kind of leading and building one and then burning it. I'm sure this is probably a shared experience of a lot of people who built effigies or led the builds on effigies, but I felt almost personally shattered and burnt, at that time, So that was a really, powerful and strange and new experience, which gave me a lot more, I guess. It gave me a different perspective compared to what I'd experienced before, where I thought it was just all fun and games. Like, it was a lot more powerful than I expected to kind of have built that and then given it away to everyone in the paddock. It was, yeah.
Most of the effigies I've experienced in Australia or I've seen in New Zealand is that we don't usually burn an establishment figure or a man figure. We're more connected to the country, the community, or the land. So we burn sort of like in Modify we burn insects. They burn beetles and grasshoppers and stuff like that. So Underland, you guys burn frogs and moths and stuff like that as well, which is native to the environment. So that's what I love about it. And in that sense, you can really look, I guess, more vast in terms of what the natural stuff that we have here and appreciate it more. So yeah, and seeing all these builds is just amazing.
Yeah, I think there's something a bit, I don't know, it feels a bit more organic and it feels a bit more, based where we are, seeing those kind of, the animals and the insects come through. Yeah, it was, I got really inspired by like the landscape we were on.
Yeah, and my firm belief as an artist is the more that we can increase our diversity, the more that we'll have far more rich expression to continue this tradition, which is something that I find quite exciting and sort of inspirational for some of our work.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one great example, while she's not here, we were supposed to have her on. She's not feeling well, but Aruna, from her, I guess, background, her Asian kind of Southeast Asian background, kind of using that to inspire and showing a different landscape for Underland. And in a way, it actually fits into the landscape of it because it is about diversity. It is about all these people that's in the community.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of emotion, continuing on what Jim was saying. There's a lot of emotion in the crews. The crews work really hard. They're working as a family. They're living and working together in the build. So it's a very special time and experience. And then, when the things burn, it is quite emotional. So one of the things I try to do is try to recruit people as much as possible into this. So, I had a person, I invited them to play some music at one of the burns. And she had this just amazing experience and was raving about it to me. And I sort of, while I'm working, sort of forget that. But then I always try to remind myself, like, this can be big for people, to just try to bring as many people in as we can to do something or participate in some way, because then they're emotionally invested in it, right? And then when it burns, it's sort of, they play their role in it. So yeah, be really looking for more creative ideas to try and get more people involved. And I know Pete from Burning Man, a Wondery person, he encourages everyone to gather a stick when they come to the fire when he does his opening ceremony. And that's a very great technique that brings everyone in for the ceremony.
Definitely. And I think, casting wide nets for participation at lots of different levels, for age, gender, diversity, and lived experiences as well, because I think the reason, you want these structures to have meaning in them, and the only way, and that has to be given to them by the people who build them. And if we're giving everyone kind of like a creative freedom to build something that means something to them, then you're going to have more powerful experiences, I guess, rather than if you're just like, oh, it has to look like this, or it has to look like that, or it has to be built this way. Like, we can really change, all of, that can all be flipped on its head, or it can all kind of, I think there's a real beauty and power in that. And yeah, it's a pity that Runa's not here tonight, but yeah, her temple was absolutely stunning, you know, and I loved like the complexity of the simplicity of it, you know, and yeah, it, you know, calling back to her roots and her culture was just so beautiful. It gave it so much power. So it was a real pleasure for the two of us to be leading each project this year and just supporting and riffing off each other and both doing it for the first time. It was an absolute pleasure to be working with her.
Well, from someone looking from the outside in, I saw you guys like while you're building your
Oh
own
yeah,
structures. You guys were having fun, and I saw that. And it was great. You know, it's not just working every day for what,
no,
like 12 hours shift or whatever you guys do, working
definitely. Yeah,
hard,
it
but
was so much fun, you
it's
know,
also about having
and
fun.
I mean, we had very different work processes. I think, you know, Aruna had a design kind of from New Year's Eve that she'd been working on and chipping away at kind of, you know, a weekend a month. Whereas I sort of had an idea in my head, but I don't think I put pen to paper until, yeah, like I was saying, like 6 weeks out or something. But yeah, then we were just both able to, we caught up a few times at the pub and just, you know, brain dumped on each other about what we were doing and how it was working and who we're talking to and what do we need. And so, yeah, it was a great support sort of network. And then, yeah, and then once we were on site, it was just so inspiring to kind of, you know, be focused. We'd each be focused on our own builds, or like I would be focused on my build there all the time. And then you'd look across and like, you know, something has gone up on the effigy, or, you know, at the end of the day, like each, you know, we'd switch over we'd have like some morning smoko and we'd switch between going and visiting each other's effigy, each other's space each day. And yeah, it was just great to catch up with each other and the teams to all be working with each other because, you know, the site is pretty small at that stage. It's just like, you know, effigy, temple, and site crew. So yeah, we've become a really big family for those couple of weeks, which is, yeah, such great fun.
Glenn, you want to talk about some of the support networks or the support things that people, when they want to do a build or something,
Yeah.
what's available?
Yeah, well, we're basically just making all this up as we go along, which has its pros and cons. So previously, it was more people that had solid skills and experience that was doing this. So that restricted us down to the tradespeople, which generally meant tradesmen. So what we're trying to do is gather the people with skills, and it depends on who's available when, and we're sort of juggling it around. But we've got sort of a crew of people that sort of work on this stuff and have built together. You know, now we're going to recruit Jim, and hopefully, you know, he'll be able to help mentor as well, the next person. So it totally depends on the time and when people come in. And we really have to also do a big shout out to the amazing Axel, who's a highly skilled artist and tradesman, but loves supporting people and likes rocket fast on SketchUp. And so he personally does a bunch of support to move things. So that's really exciting. And there are other people in the crew. So the idea of what we're doing at the moment is rather than having some system, we're like doing a call out, like, who wants to get involved? What do you got? And so there may be an established crew that has skills come in and go, we want to do it this and we'll do it this way. We're like, fine, let's do that. Or it might be someone who goes, I don't really have much idea. I've got enthusiasm, you know, so we can talk to them about, you know, what support they need. And then we most likely will have to be able to scaffold something around to support them. So yeah, we're making up as we go along, but we do have people around. We do have skills. We do have enthusiasm. Yeah. So let's see who comes back on what ideas they have and that sort of thing.
I remember the last info session you guys had. You guys talked about the commencement of the build 6 months away from the burn date and 2 weeks on site. Is that correct? What are the logistics or what are the details involved?
Okay, so will basically need what you're going to build it out of. You're building a structure, so you also need it to not fall over and be safe. So we've been really championing really using our materials, sourcing our materials. So for example, when we built the first Underland emu, there was this old shearing shed that had been demolished, and the owner was about to burn it. And literally most of the stuff was rotten away. And we just pull out bits of wood that were rotten and stuff. And then by the time we put them as cladding, it was this beautiful textures. Like of this, the hard bits were able to nail in, and then all the roddy bits sticking out the other side, and it was just a beautiful texture. And maybe Jim can talk to about this, but sourcing materials really leads the way. So then, how are you going to source them? Where are you going to source them from? Where are you going to store them? How are you going to get them to site? So things like site, we usually hire a truck collaboratively, the organisation, or you may want to source them locally. Now, a kitchen is usually done by the crew. What other logistics do we have to think about?
Yeah, so
Jim?
I guess, like once you have your design, like I had a design that I sort of built based on the materials I wanted to build it with, which was like natural timbers and the planks. And then you kind of, from that, you can work back and figure out how it's going to be built. So for mine, I couldn't do any prefabrication before we got to site. The only thing I could do was like prepare the materials. So I had like, 2 trucks worth of pallets that I had to pull apart. So yeah, you might have to organize workshops to do that and spaces to do that and space to store that before you go. I know Aruna was able to do a lot of her paneling, like was able to like pre-build a lot of the panels for the temple. So that was what she and her team were doing on like the monthly sort of workshops through the year. Yeah, gathering materials is a big thing, and then figuring out. It's got to, well, I mean, if it can
It's got to
be,
be
think about your
interactive.
ideas. Like, yeah, so pulling in the skills for interactivity. So yeah, like I had like the puppet idea, which originally I was just like that only happened on the burn night. But then as we were building it, my dear friend Mark, who's an extremely talented, oh my god, everyone should have a German carpenter on their build because they're just ridiculous. Yeah, he was just like, tell me the idea, tell me your preferences, and then I'd walk away and come back, and he's just like made this, beautiful piece. Yeah, definitely,
That's
and a
a
proper
proper burner.
craftsman, So like, yeah, I think in terms of, I was pretty like, I'm a bit of a slapdash kind of person, like in terms of, but I've built sculptures before, mostly working like my background. The sculptures I built before were all 100% like natural branches, like so we would literally like go to a site, go out into the bush, and then just find dead branches and then pull them back, and then from that we would create a sculpture. So I was like, so my mentality, it like isn't so much about having the plan and then being like, okay, I'm going to need to like produce X, Y, Z to then make the plan. It's more like, what have I got? And then let's work with what I've got to build something. So I guess it's more of a sculptural approach rather than a build approach. And so, yeah, so I was doing that a bit even though the Pobblebonk, I did actually plan out a lot of it. I did sketch up, and model a lot of it just to get things like the mouth. I had the mouth already planned out. I had, the scale of it planned out, and I had to figure out how many. The eyes I offsourced to a
The
friend.
eyes.
Yeah. Stephen Manos. So I put in a request to him to build the eyes for me. So yeah, and they worked amazingly well. And then, another friend, Jamie Donovan, he created the bugs, the like kind of paper mache bugs. And that was just like an off the cuff comment kind of, well, like it was like a dream at one point. I mentioned it to him. I was like, oh, hey, Jamie, you make these, he's an amazing artist. He makes creative, beautiful things. At one point I was just like, oh, do you want to make some lanterns? It'd be really cool to have these, hanging outside the frog. And then, 2 weeks before the burn, he was just like, so what about those lanterns? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. If you can, that'd be great. Again, this was like, a beautiful, if possible. And then he comes back and he's just built, these like gorgeously delicate paper mache little bugs with like the, the wings were made from dead snakeskin, and then like the feelers were made from, what is it? Peacock feathers, so like he just sourced beautiful materials to make these gorgeous little additions. And so then when you kind of can give people these projects of these little aspects of it, then they can just like put their whole heart into it, which I think is really beautiful. Yeah. I mean, then we burnt it all down.
And you burnt it all
But,
down. What a shame! It was so beautiful.
It
You sound like
was.
my mother there.
It
And
was.
that was the best part. Well, here's the thing. I've got a little story. So at the first Underland, I met the locals there, and it was the rain moth, and they were so impressed. They loved it, and they said, "Well, guess what? The best part is we're gonna burn it down." And they were like, "Oh, what? What are you guys doing? Like, you guys are crazy."
Are
So,
they saying that though?
how do you guys feel about building something and burning it down? How do you feel
I mean,
about
a lot
building
of these
something and burning it down?
structures are permanent. So if you're looking at permanent artwork, these simply could not be permanent artworks. They wouldn't be structurally safe. They degrade very quickly. We're not. Yeah, they just would fail in any context. In that, but I'm a pyromantic, and I really love burning stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the best part.
It is the best part. Yeah, like
And
we was talking about, it's tribal, it's connection, it is bonding and stuff like that. So yeah,
and I'm really into the performance. So we do a lot of educated guesses and experiments when we do this artwork, and we win some and we lose some, trying to create effects and things. And so the people watching don't really know that we may have failed 2 out of 3 effects we went for. They're just really wowed by the one that we did pull off. And then sometimes we get lucky and produce effects that we didn't plan. We'll go, well, that's our pull shot. We'll take that. So yeah, we do a lot of planning, experimenting with how things burn.
And yeah, it's like,
which I really love.
I think that was the beauty of it, is that you build it to burn. Like that's what I loved about this experience of just working on the moth last year, and then the frog this year. It's just like that was the first time that I'd ever thought about the effect that fire will have on it, and the experience of how it will burn and what people will see. And like you're saying, Glenn, you can plan it, or you can think you can plan it as much as you want, but then in the end of the day, it's going to be blowing however much, the wind's going to be doing whatever it's going to be doing, and the materials and the structure will do its own thing as well. Yeah, I just remember, like, because I think I had a very, what's the word? Like, I had a complicated burn plan, for the frog. So,
do you want to explain to the listeners? Like, I saw the photo how the flame kind of caught the bug or the fly.
Yeah. So
explain it.
I guess
Jim.
I'll go back to like the idea that I had for this frog immediately. So like when I was on the 23 build one night, I was walking out near the temple side, and I could hear the call of pobblebonks, or eastern banjo frogs. So for anyone who doesn't know that sound, they're just like, they go, like pobonk, 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 pobonk. So it's a really, really distinct sound. And then, at the end of the build for the moth, or the end of that first Underland, people were talking about, who would like to build next? And I just had this idea pop in my head of just like the idea of this frog. I was just like, a frog would be cool. And then I was like, imagine if the frog could, like, its tongue could dart out and catch the flame, and then pull it back in. And I was just like, immediately, that would be a really sick effect, and my mind started ticking on like how we could make this work. So in the end, I've designed the frog. It was sitting up on its back legs, kind of, arms out, holding, well, it's meant to be grass, but it kind of looks like, I don't know, huge staves in front of it. Yeah, we ended up, the bottom jaw of the frog was on a hinge, and you could operate it from a lever inside the frog. And this was, and it was it was a bit of an Easter egg, even like how that worked, because we had all these natural branches inside of it being the skeleton, and then the lever was just also these natural branches that Mark had just kind of locked together. So if you were looking for it, you could find it, but if you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't notice it, and you could unlock the lever. And what I loved was that the person operating the lever inside couldn't see what was happening. So it was only people who were outside the frog who could see the mouth moving. So you had to work together to kind of have both experiences, which I really loved. And then on the night of, for the burn, we built, I think it was like a 5 meter long or 6 meter long tongue that I made out of calico fabric. And we'd done some testing, or, experiments during the build around the campfire one night, just to see what combinations of fuels would work best to get the flame to dart up it. So we landed on a base of vegetable oil and then a top coat of shellite, I think it was. And yeah, we built out the front of the frog. We built a lotus flower, and then that had bugs that Jamie had made on it. And I lit the lotus flower, and also one other thing. Yeah, lots of puppetry. So we had to, have puppetry to control the mouth. And my original idea was like, oh yeah, someone will be out the back, someone will be out the front to kind of pull the tongue in, pull the tongue back. But on the afternoon that we were loading the effigy, a few people in my team, I was like, oh, who wants to be the puppeteer out the back? And someone in my team just turned to me and they're like, we all want to be out the front, like no one wants to be out the back. And I was just like, okay, yep. And I was just like, okay, cool, that's fine. So then we had to like sort of redesign it so all the puppetry came from out the front of the frog. And I'm so glad that they said that, because at that point in time I was just problem solving mind. I wasn't really thinking about the full experience. But yeah, so we were all able, the whole team, we were able to be out the front of the effigy. And after I'd lit the flower, I went to the team and cued one person to drop the mouth, another person to pull the tongue out, and the flames just traced up beautifully into the mouth of the frog. And then we pulled, another person pulled the tongue back in. And so then that like ran down into the stomach of the frog. And yeah, so it just really swallowed the flames. And then we closed the mouth again. And yeah, the whole thing kind of went up from the belly up, I guess. Yeah. And I can't believe how well it worked. It was insane that nothing went wrong. And yeah, I just remember going up to do the burn briefing with all the safety crew and with, Rusty and everyone who was leading that. And, I'm surrounded by such extremely talented and experienced people, who've been doing it for like decades. And here am I being like this dude of just like, oh, yep. And so then this will happen, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. And then, it will burn from there. And everyone's just like, oh, so what'll happen if it doesn't work? I'm like, we'll figure it out. No, we did have backups, but yeah, it was a dream. And yeah, I was really happy to be able to kind of bring that kind of playful narrative to it. Because, it's not, even though we did use a lot of fuel and we tried to have a few big bangs, which we did have, it doesn't all need to be huge pyrotechnics or anything like that. Like, I think if you just have some clever ideas to bring in some story to it, it really makes the process of how things burn and how things collapse can make that whole part another dimension of the artwork.
Yeah,
And you talked about the frogs. Are they still in
I hope so.
on the site?
So I didn't hear
at the
them
farm?
last time I was there. I know Mick, the landowner, he was doing some earthworks near the little dam where I'd first heard them, and I think he'd busted a wall on it. So I don't know if it was it wasn't in the best like frog friendly condition last time I saw it, but hopefully with a bit more time it'll all come back. I'm definitely thinking of all of them. I know there's bushfires out that way at the moment now, so I hope they're all doing all right. But it was just a beautiful opportunity to have that, like, I had that experience on that first year, and then to like be inspired by it to bring something back. And so then to be able to, I had sound recordings going inside the frog as well. And, again, this was like something that I'd had an idea in my head, but then in the lead up hadn't really organized anything. But during the build, I shared the idea with, the team. And again, Mark, being an absolute legend, was just like, he had like, one of those Tradio portable speakers from a construction site sort of thing. And he's just like, oh, I'll just build a spot in the bench where we can just put this. And then you just put your phone on it and we've just got it going, and that's it,
Yeah.
And so, every little maybe that I had just worked out. Yeah. And he was able to create such a beautiful interior space. When like in my mind, I was just like, it can just be a dirt floor and a janky bench. And then he builds, this stunning, designed floor and, carved benches. And it was just great. And we were just kind of working with these random materials that I had. So, I'd had like offcuts of slabs that we'd shaved to make for the face. And then, at the back of my new share house, we had like some random, rotting planks and again, bits of wood, which I just like threw into the truck as well. I was just like, they'll be useful somewhere. And all of that timber just got used in the interior. Yeah. And it was just,
so your story, your background is very important for
Yeah.
us to connect with you, as well as the build. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I guess admiring someone's tattoo. You know, there must be a story behind that.
Thank you.
So I was very impressed, Jim. Very impressed with your work there. All the details, all the little details, and it worked well.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, no, it worked
Thanks
really
for
well.
sharing all that. Okay, well, let's. Well, I've got. So shall we move on to a bit of more fun segment? I've designed a little brain teaser here. It's about iconic temples and structures around the world. So what we'll do? You guys want to play a little game of brain teaser here with
Sure.
talking about temples and structures?
Yeah, so are you going to plan how we're going to burn them down?
No, well, what I'll do is I'll read out a set of clues or random trivia. You tell me what the iconic structure or temple is, where it is, or what country, and bonus points if you visited these iconic temples or structures. Yeah. All right. So clue number 1 or trivia number 1. This structure was constructed between 1631 and 1653, so the 17th century. Next clue. It's Islamic religious building. It can be a mosque, a tomb, or mausoleum. It took over 20,000 people, human power, to construct this building. The design was influenced by
Middle.
Do you know what it is?
I have no idea.
Yes, you mentioned that earlier.
His lover, wasn't it?
It is actually. Yeah. You mentioned it earlier, so well done.
It was dedicated
to his lover at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it attracts about 7 to 8 million tourists a year.
I haven't yet to
which is a lot of people. Yeah, and apparently it's turning yellow. Although it was originally built with white ivory marble.
Oh wow!
But with the pollution, it's turning yellow.
I guess it's getting smoker's teeth.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Taj Mahal.
No, but I'd love to go.
I have never been there. Have you guys been there?
Yeah.
It's quite impressive, yeah. All right, trivia number 2. This iconic structure was constructed between 72 AD and 80 AD, completed in 81 AD, but there has been some more modifications to it. It's an elliptical amphitheater built using volcanic rock, travertine limestone, and brick-faced concrete.
Colosseum?
Yes,
cool.
That's right, yes. In Italy, Rome. You guys been there?
Yeah.
That's got a bit of a brutal story. Yes, I have been there.
Tell us about it.
Oh,
were you inspired by the architecture?
Yeah, I was really surprised how small it was. I come from modern stadiums, MCG, and the Colosseum would fit it just in probably the football ground. But yeah, it's fascinating, the political history of that as well, where they basically entertained the masses to distract them from what they wanted to do politically, which then escalated into just more violent and vile exploits. So yeah, very similar to what's happening these days with our stadiums.
Yeah, it's got a quite interesting history. I mean, my connection to it was from the Bruce Lee movies and Chuck Norris when they fought at the end at the Colosseum. That's my connection. Okay, trivia number 3. This structure is made from limestone, mortar, and granite. It was built in circa 2560 BC, and it was built over a period of 25 years. It served as holding the record as the tallest human-made structure in the world for more than 3,800 years.
One of the pyramids?
It's oldest among the... Sorry?
One of the pyramids? The Egyptian pyramids?
Yeah, the Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Cairo.
That was the tallest structure.
Yeah, it's ancient wonders of the world. It was.
I haven't visited, but I always get blown away by the photos
Yeah.
of when, like, you know how, like, it's, like, picturesque when you look at it from one angle, but then, like, you turn around and then, like, the city is, like, right there, which you just never expect. I think that would be wild to visit.
No, and everything's just perfect. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, the thing that would be really fascinating is its original context, because, you know, there's evidence that they were highly painted, highly coloured, bright, very beautiful structures. I haven't visited that one, but I have visited a bunch in South America, which are amazing experiences. The acoustics and a bunch of other stuff, optical illusions, just fascinating. So
amazing.
I love that stuff.
Next question. So this structure, this building, was constructed in 1959 and completed in 1973. Designed by Danish architect John Utzon. It's a multi-venue performing arts center, designated a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 2007, and attracts over 8 million people a year to this iconic building. Correct. Very iconic, with the sails. What do you reckon of the design? Is it inspirational?
I love it. I love it because it...
With the building structure.
Yeah, because it's just...
Yeah, it's great.
Like, if you're going to build an art, like...
Yeah, I love it.
You know, a place for art, make it a piece of art itself. And I love how like these huge iconic buildings always have like such controversy around like how they were built. You know, like the politicians get involved and they're like, it's too expensive. You know, and now what they're like rebuilding it to like put in his original designs into the interior as well. I think now, or they were doing that.
Yeah. Do you think people are building it to be like put onto like a World Heritage List or something? Like that's the grand design, something out there.
I'd assume that an artist at that level would be trying to, really push their creative vision. So yeah, I'd assume that a structure like that, they were not so much to win awards, but to really, really push what they
push
can
what's
do.
possible. You know, like I'm sure there would have been some crazy engineering
Yep.
to make that work. You know, the sails and the concrete. Like, you don't want if you're going to build something beautiful, you don't just build a block. Yeah.
No, that's right. Like Minecraft, yes. Okay, question number 5. It was constructed in 1555, completed in 1561. It's designed in the shape of a rising flame that resembles a bonfire rising into the sky. Comprised of 8 churches surrounding a large core structure, built from red brick and white stone. And it's a cathedral. Sorry, the cathedral is a representation of medieval art and architecture.
I was thinking a cathedral.
So it is a cathedral.
It's not Gaudi's one though.
Clue. Yeah.
In the Rising Flames. That's what I'm trying to think of. I'm like, I don't know.
The Rising Flames?
I don't know.
The bonfire? It looks like
I don't know my churches.
I've never been there as well.
That's a bad mix though with Christian history. They're really pushing that on it.
Oh, is it?
It's in Moscow, Russia.
That really brightly coloured one. What is that called? I know what. Is that in St. Petersburg?
St. Basil's Cathedral.
Moscow. Okay.
Moscow. Yeah. Yeah, it's iconic for its rising flames. I've never been
the one
there.
with, like,
it looks
the
great.
green and gold.
They
and
designed it.
That one? Red. Oh, okay. No.
It's red, yeah, red.
I have to see that.
Okay, so this structure was constructed in 1122 CE to 1150 CE when it was completed. Built as a temple, shrine, mausoleum, and observatory. It's dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu. Has celestial significance with certain features, like precise location of the solstice at sunrise. It has 5 central towers symbolizing the peaks of Mount Meru, which according to mythology is the dwelling place of the gods.
This I do not know. I do not know my Hindu temples.
Do you know this temple? It's in Asia. Okay. It's in Siem Reap, Cambodia.
I think I can see pictures of it, and they got big trees going through it and stuff. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, Angkor Wat. Yes, Cambodia.
Yeah.
So it's centuries old. Yeah. It has an aura. So these places do have an aura. Would you agree with that? Have you been to these large monuments or iconic structures? Yeah, it gives a big presence. Definitely. Like you can feel the whole. Yeah.
And that was the point of cathedrals, is to really overwhelm you with the almighty power of God. So therefore you should do as you're told.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, last one. We'll go for a break. Okay. This was constructed in 1978, completed in 1986. Designed by Iranian architecture for Ribors Saba. Hard to pronounce. It's characterized by 9-sided construction in keeping with the belief in the mythical properties of the number 9. It's composed of 27 freestanding marble-clad petals, arranged in clusters of 3 to form 9 sides. Again, 9. Notable for its lotus-like shape. So that's a big clue there.
Temple. Lotus temple.
And it is a temple. Based in India.
No.
Yes.
I've never been to India.
What did you say?
So, I don't know.
Glenn?
No. You got me.
It's a lotus shape.
The lotus temple.
And it's a temple. So it's a lotus temple. It's in New Delhi. It's fairly recent, I guess, in the modern era. So 1986. Yeah, I haven't been there. It looked great.
Yeah.
Like modern architecture is pretty good too.
It's interesting you mentioned the number 9, which comes part of the sacred geometry subset. And a lot of the burner builders are using sacred geometry as their base. I use 6 a lot, and a lot of other artists sort of using 6 and then other multiples of that geometry.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is there a course for that as well?
You can just do the basics. I'm sure you'll find stuff online. So yeah, it's good to get a compass, and then you can just draw it out. So you start with the Inception, which is 2 circles, and then you go up to the Holy Trinity. And the reason this subset of geometry is sacred is because it's just been used by so many religious icons. So once you start getting compass and drawing it out, which you end up with the tree of life, but there's a whole bunch of religious symbols that are formed during that process. All geometry is sacred. This is ones that were just used by religion.
True.
But from an aesthetic point of view, it really does lead to beautiful aesthetics.
Groups of 3. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a short break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, Bonzaar, Nugby here. Secretary, crew wrangler, and chief coffee consumer at 3rd Degree. Part-time crew wrangler for Seed. There's plenty of other things, I'm sure, both before and during. And looking forward to hitting both those up this year. And sad that I won't be getting that Canberra winter solstice goodness, but look forward to seeing you all out there.
Hey there, Steve. This is Nilo here. Congratulations on the podcast. Very exciting news that the burner community in Australia is moving to this very convenient medium, and there's no better man than yourself to drive it. Hello to everybody. Hope you're well. Hope you're listening. Hope you're still burning away. Love you lots. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're back. What I want to talk about is the idea of having a burn without a burn. We still have an effigy or a temple, but we don't burn, because that way we can do it in the summertime or in the warmer weathers, which, although in terms of holding it in those seasons, we don't have a burn permit. So how can we burn in the summertime, guys? What do you think?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm feeling my experience with even other summer festivals in Australia, it's almost impossible now to have a festival in January, because of just the bushfire risk. And so I'm almost tempted to say, why have the burn in the summer? But that being said, even, if you do it earlier in the year, sometimes you can't do the burn, so there was a risk of that happening with Underland this year. There was pretty high winds, so you can't always control it. But yeah, a burn without a burn, would it just be a music festival or an arts festival? I think there'd have to be a lot of intention in the community. Yeah, but you could still gather, do things in other ways, maybe. Do you have a thought, Glenn?
What are your thoughts, Glenn?
Yeah, I think we can replicate most of the magic of our gatherings and of our community, but we can't replicate the power of the experiences, in my opinion, of fire. Yes, there are alternatives you could do. I think theatre's probably where it would go, because doing a permanent sculpture sort of doesn't have that pinnacle, the reason to gather or whatever. So maybe a structure that's a sort of a performance puppet, something. So yeah, but I mentioned earlier, it's winter that is also a part of this. The solstice, burning at the solstice. There's a whole bunch of and also people who are willing to come in the winter are sometimes a different type of person that will only come when it's nice in the sun. So yeah, I don't think we should be dogmatic and say we have to burn. But for me, it's a big part of it for me.
Would one idea be, say, we can have a summer burn without burning, but transfer those art or something where we can burn it in the next year forward in the wintertime or something, so we can have an alternating kind of season or kind of gathering burn or something? I'm not sure.
If you own the property or you can store, storage, transport, our artworks that we build wouldn't last that long. Again, you can get around these hurdles. But I don't see the climax of a sculpture that's still there on Sunday morning. When you burn it on Saturday, it's a climax.
It is the best part, as we keep on saying.
Yeah, it's a climax of energy, and I think a lot of that energy is when people tap into the primal human experience that I mentioned before. The seasons, the fire, the earth, all of that. I do think it injects just a primal energy into the event.
That being said, I also like if the land was available to leave artworks and that sort of stuff, and if the event was of a scale enough, I think the idea of building an art piece with the intention of it to live like a year or two and then to be burnt is a really great experience. I recently went to Africa Burn and like last year, and because the scale, like they do own that land, or they have use of that land, and they have scale because it's basically a huge open desert, but they're limited on resources, so they encourage like not the effigy or the temple, but like the other art burns will get built, and a few of them will be built of such a quality that they'll then stay there for 2 or 3 years before they burn. And I think, and that allows a smaller group of artists to create a space with higher impact, So I think if Australia ever got, if we ever had a space that had the scale to allow that, I think that would be something worth exploring. But yeah, in terms of like the effigy and the temple, I'm for either burn it or don't build it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also add to if we built, say, Jim's frog and left it for a year, it'd become a rich ecosystem. So, do we just set fire to all the creatures that are in there?
That's true. Yeah, because I
mean, I pulled a spider out of the temple while we were putting fuel on it. So already it's attracting wildlife. And you get spiders, then you'll get lizards, and etc. It goes up the food chain, as you know the story.
Yeah. You definitely have birds perching in the top of those reeds if that frog would let me left there.
As well as all the cows running into them.
But I do think there's a massive place, though, for having a more permanent site where we can, build more permanent structures that are more appropriate to be permanent. Or we could explore, and there's been discussions about this, where we build permanent artwork, then we move it to the local community so that they can then use that as a tourist attraction, which helps their community and just enriches the area around anyway. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do in permanent artwork that would be very.
Yeah, I think Blazing Swan has a permanent artwork in Coolin, in the city, in the township of Coolin. Yeah,
that's cool. Did they build it there permanently, or did they?
They built it at Swan, and then they shifted into the town centre. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just do a quick shout out? The state and regional governments have got big grant applications, 20 to 100 grand to build stuff like this. And Common Arts has agreed to auspice it. So if you have some sort of idea to say, well, we'll build this and move it, it's like 100 grand worth of budget. Just putting it out there.
Cool.
They probably won't let us burn it, but if you want to put it in the local town, for example, and you could use that money to include, your engineer fees and whatever sort of extra costs involved or something.
You'd have to get some proper plans for that.
Yeah, you need an engineer to sign it off. But you've got 100 grand budget, you can afford it, right?
Well,
so great. Yeah, that just came out in the newsletter this morning from hot off the press from Underland.
Cool. And what is the budget for this year's? It will be similar to last year's build. So for this year, what is the budget? Do you have approximates for that?
I think it's 12 grand for both effigy and temple.
Yeah. So that was the same as.
Don't quote me on it, but it's roughly that.
Yeah, that was the budget for this year.
So put that in perspective. Burning Seeds, effigy used to be 25 grand, and the temple is 20, I think, roughly numbers. So they're much smaller budgets that say that. But if you'll be creative, and especially with your materials, because that's what you spend most of your budget on, yeah, you can really make that budget go a long way.
Yeah.
And food supplied, and that food's additional, and like a truck, for example, additional. So there are additional support on top of that budget.
Yeah.
And there's also the limitations with the structure, the size of the structure as well.
Yeah, the permit, it keeps getting bigger. Back to your thing about no burns, like one of the strong conversations is about restricting the size of the burns. Like we don't need to build them bigger than Ben-Hur. And the smaller they go, the more intricate you can go. You can do more performance, more puppetry. So I think that the scale that we're doing at the moment is ideal scale. I personally wouldn't want to go any bigger. I think we've got permits to go bigger, but again, it depends on your concept, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also depending on the population that we have. So Seed's a bigger population than Underland, so yeah. Because you want that communal space to be more very, I guess, more approachable. Like you can actually feel like we're talking about with the aura of these structures.
Yeah, I mean, the other big issue is that if you go above sort of 4.5, 5 meters in height, your logistics completely change because you need then to have licensed either scaffold, or you've got to have people with tickets that can use machinery that's expensive, really slows it down, restricts things. I mean, it gets exponentially more complex and difficult and expensive to go above 4.5 meters.
Yeah, it's much nicer to work on something that's a human scale, and especially in that like how we're talking about, how to make it inclusive. If you can have something that you can build basically working on the ground, which is kind of how, the frog and the temple worked this year. Like they were both taken apart in sections, and like we had the body and then the legs, the head on the ground, and was able to work on them both separately at that scale. It makes it a much more approachable sort of, and way easier to manage. You don't have to worry about safety or as much about safety of heights and that sort of stuff. So
it's like a IKEA flatbed kind of assembly.
Exactly.
Bit by bit.
Stack it on top like a big wedding cake. That's how we did how the temple was done. Also, speaking of that, if it went any higher, you'd have to definitely hire in bigger cranes and that sort of stuff. Which again,
and that sort of equipment's expensive.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so if you love to do it yourself in IKEA, you should come and build a temple then.
For sure.
That's the next level, next step. Progressively, yeah.
Or we could just go burn an IKEA down.
Have you ever tried to played hide and seek there in IKEA? Hide and seek.
Nah, just start using all the random bedrooms and furniture. Nah, haven't been to one of them for years.
Shall we talk about so I love the burner generated discussions that's happening around social media. There's one particular one that I want to highlight. It's by Erin Susan Killian Del Castillo. So she wrote about rethinking the temple at Seed. And some of her themes or takeaways we should really. So many people miss the potential of the place. Is what she writes in, and she has several things that's required if we're to rethink, sort of like make it a more sacred place, especially for the temple. Do you guys have you guys read this piece that she wrote on Facebook, and you guys got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very supportive of it. And that really does honour the tradition that David Best originally had. And if we are talking about suicide or other really major loss, or also some really happy stuff, these places can be very heavy and deep. And if you've got other people there, getting rowdy and having a party, which it was great, but there's probably maybe this time and place isn't for that. And my understanding is that Erin was wanting to create more awareness that this space is being used in that way by a lot of people, to bring a bit more respect to these spaces. And I think they also had a strategy of having like a collective that would hang out and sort of just softly sort of create that culture.
She talks about. Yeah, she talks about offering to hold a space for her theme camp mates, and for other people. So it's a kind of space where, in the default world, it's kind of taboo to be sharing these kind of feelings or sorrows with strangers. So yeah, and she highlights these three. Well, communication ahead of the event is key if we want to rethink what the temple represents. The other one is the right design, and she talks about it being completely different from the rest of the burn. It's like even the effigy, so it's completely within its own kind of space there, unique space. And the other thing that she talks about is seeing examples in use. And one example would be like a program of contemplative music, or something that can be like you're saying, a performance or something like that as well, just to educate and give some awareness out there, as well as a background, as you know, for you, Jim. It's a connection for people.
Totally. I think, that's like the temples can be such powerful places, and I definitely agree that, like if they're going to be built, they should be built with that intention. And I would say, like design can have such a huge impact on them, like creating a space that encourages that sort of reflection. I think, I know how, she talked on how it's like, it's hard to kind of like educate in the moment, if it's clashing with a space. This might be like a controversial opinion of mine, but like I always found like Burning Seed was the first burn that I ever went to, and I didn't often connect with the temple at that size. And I think there's something about the fact that it's within the gathering, so you can't like you can't go on like a mini pilgrimage to it. It's kind of everything's already around you. So I don't know, like if that has an impact on that. Like it's hard to take the party away from it when the party is all around it. Whereas at other burns, if it has a little bit of distance, it's something you have to go to away, and you physically walk away from the party. That helps to bring reflectiveness to it. I think that would be my sort of thoughts, but I think it's definitely.
Yeah, she mentioned.
Yeah,
Erin writes in her piece about Blazing Swan. That was really transformative for her, the experience, and it was because it was a bit further away.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and I heard one Sunday afternoon at Blazing Swan, a violinist playing at their temple. It was a very beautiful experience. I also just wanted to mention that the Tiffany that was co-leading the Nautilus process, that had a very strong intention about creating a sacred space, and used the spiral to actually disconnect people from the festival and then bring them into the space. And then inside was it was that ceremony of walking around. And then once you're in that inner space, there was, a shrine type arrangement there. So there was a lot of intent to creating a sacred space, and she was also exploring this very ancient creature. I think it's from dinosaur times. Don't quote me on that, but it's very ancient. It's facing extinction because the acidification of the ocean through the carbon dioxide. So, she was also dealing with, something that was very emotional to her personally, is a mass extinction of our complete collapse of our natural world.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that journey in that temple was gorgeous, So I think, like the intention of the group behind it, as well as like really considered design, can have a really strong impact. And I think that's things that like the temple creators can control. But then in terms of that sort of like community education, invitations, and all that sort of stuff, that's where it has to kind of like just be opened up to the community to be like, okay, now this has been built for you, please use it with respect, and or invite people to use it in ways that are fit for it, and reflection. So that's where it kind of turns out to everyone else, kind of use it appropriately, or have your experiences.
So when we talk about having the right design, or having one that resembles, I guess, more like a temple, is it? Yeah, I mean, what are people's impressions of what a temple should be like? I mean, this year's was probably a great example, because the first comments people were saying was that it's very temple-y. Whether that's a word to describe a temple, of course it's a temple. It's temple-y, yeah. But the image or the vision that people had straight away was from an ancient kind of influence, kind of inspired design. And Asian cultures are known for their temples.
Yeah,
So aesthetically, do we need to have something that is temple-y?
Well, I
And
think
what is a
it needs.
temple?
I think it needs to function as a temple. And there's a lot of religious and cultural history. So you're talking about the Asian inspiring. You can also go right back to the Druids of the UK, Northern Europe, where they had stone circles. I mean, that was holding a space, through to sort of churches and a whole bunch of different buildings. I think the architecture of Runa's design, which was a very unique spin on a traditional design, really resonated as a temple. But I think where Aaron's coming from is more, it needs to be a functional space. You sort of disconnect people from the festival so they can, explore their emotions. It's my understanding.
And what are your thoughts about guardian temples? Oh, sorry, yeah, temple guardians.
Well, if we can find volunteers, I think it's a really good thing. It's like anything. These burns, it's like there's a lot of ideas for whether there's people willing that are inspired to do that, step up.
Yeah, I guess I would. Yeah, my second burning seed. I think I was part of that first Temple Guardian crew actually for that temple that had the stained glass that cracked open. It was, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I think how she mentions, like, you don't want it to be a role of where you're trying to like creep on people as they're there. I think a Temple Guardian, like, when it is a really powerful place, like if the Guardian is there to, support people in their emotional processing, I think that's a really powerful and important role. But I would kind of hope that I would hope that there was enough sort of like conversation and community engagement.
Thanks for coming on, guys. Do you guys want to talk about anything else? Want to mention anything else?
No, I would just say, yeah, thanks, Stephen, for having this podcast. And anyone who's interested in ever, being part of an effigy or a temple, I think it's definitely a worthwhile experience. I think everyone should build a temple. Everyone should build an effigy. Doesn't mean you have to design it, but just get involved. It makes the experience of being at a burn so much nicer. Like, you really feel part of it in another way.
Yeah, and if you have any perceived barriers, please contact me personally, or there's a bit of a collective forming for inclusion and support. So those barriers hopefully could be overcome. And if you're a bit shy, then join a build crew. And the great thing about build crews is you learn skills. So if you've got no idea about how a hammer works, that's fine. We can show you. We're really into skill sharing. So yeah, come along and get involved. The email came out this morning inviting people to do an application. If you're not signed up to the mailing list, then get on the mailing list. Also jump on the Slack channel that Underland's got that you can ask questions. And I'll just read out a paragraph from the newsletter. To support your application, there will be one more info session and feedback opportunities during February, with applications due by the end of February. In March, we will decide on the winning application, and then the work begins in April. So, yeah, if you missed the last webinar, hopefully they uploaded it somewhere. We'll try to track that down. But there's another webinar coming on, so you can go through the process, hear a bit more, ask questions, and, yeah, hopefully get involved. And yeah, if you're not sure of a concept, you could just pitch that. You go, look, I'm not sure, but I've got this sort of idea kicking around, or some of my mates are thinking this or that. Because yeah, we can always have a conversation.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a complete idea.
It starts.
Get amongst it.
Yeah, it just starts. Yeah, it starts with this little spark, little idea. Yeah. Are there any other art projects that you guys want to share? You guys got anything big planned, or any little projects that you want to talk about?
I'm hoping to debut a piece I've been working on for a few years at Burning Seed this year, which doesn't involve fire. So yeah, wish me luck for the next round of crowdfunding.
Exciting.
It is, yeah. How about you, Jimbo?
I've got nothing planned at the moment. I'm kind of coming off the back of back-to-back festivals and art, and I've got my downtime. I've got a couple of weeks off in March, which is when I might start looking at the next coming year. Yeah, I'm still coming down a little bit from the effigy this year, but I definitely want to be involved in doing some more come next season. So watch this space.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Glenn and Jimbo, for coming on the show. Appreciate you guys come together like this. Inspiring work, what you guys do. Awesome work. And yeah, thanks for all the information sharing and talking about your backstories. Loved it. Hopefully get you guys back on again. talk more art. So Underland this year. See you guys there on the paddock.
We'll see you there. Thanks so much.
All right. Any other shout outs? Any other mentions, you guys? Shout out to your crew, Jimbo. So, you know.
Oh, totally. I want to thank you, all my crew, for jumping on board this year. Couldn't have done it without all of you. Yeah, Mark, Aiden, Andrew, Nick, Ronnie. Oh my gosh, I'm sure I've forgotten someone else. But everyone who jumped on board, yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Axel, Glenn, thank you for creating such a great mentoring experience at Underland as well.
Yeah, can I also do a big shout out to the actual committee and all the people that do all the like less sexier work, the building cool sculptures. Someone's doing accounting and database stuff and a whole bunch of jobs. And it really does take a community to build this artwork. And there's a whole bunch of people that really contribute, that really underpin this work. And so a big thank you and love to all the people that are doing that work. And a big thank you to all the fire safety support people and all the rangers that make it safe and all that. So yeah, that's it. One of the things that really inspires me to do this work is the fact that it is an actual genuine community. I mean, it's different to a lot of festivals. You pay money, you go get entertained and consume and go home. Like this is a very special family. So big thank you to everybody.
All right, cool. All right, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
see you guys. Thank you.